Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to this session, Working with Microsoft Project. This is our presentation outline. We shall look at the introduction. Under this, the reason as to why we are learning how to use Msproject is because we want to learn how to draft a project schedule basing on a work breakdown structure that has been presented. Maybe to enlighten you a bit, a project schedule is a deliverable of time management, and a WBS is a deliverable of scope management, and then for cost management we have a deliverable of a budget. So our area of interest is to draft or to design a project schedule from the available information provided in a WBS. Now a WBS, that is a structure of a table that we provide on a piece of paper. You'll have a view. When you look at the questions, you'll be able to see how a WBS looks like, but it mainly gives you a structure of how different activities have been divided into manageable, smaller manageable tasks. Now, preference settings. These are supposed to be done once you open up Microsoft Project. Whenever people are setting up projects, they have a plan on how that project should run. Others would want their projects to run from Monday to Friday, others from Saturday to Tuesday, so on. Others would want their projects to be costed in US dollars, others Kenyan shillings. So all these are done under the project preference settings. Then setting the project start date. You can decide to either schedule your project starting with the project start date, or you can decide to start your project starting from the finish date. Now, what does this mean? When you schedule your project starting with the project start date, it means all activities are going to run forward, and once you've been given a start date, then in the end you'll be able to determine the finish date. Now, what happens when you schedule starting from the finish date? It means you're running these activities backwards. Once you've started with a finish date, then you'll be able to determine the start date. Then changing working times. In this case, Msproject has the feature of allowing you to indicate public holidays as per calendar of that organization. Msproject also allows you to choose your working days as per that project, and then to also choose what days are non-working days in your project. Then entering tasks, duration and predecessor. Mainly these tasks, duration and predecessors are given in the question. Tasks, these are the activities supposed to be carried out to ensure that the goal of the project is achieved. Duration is the time taken for each of these tasks to be complete. Then predecessors. Predecessor gives you, it's a link. How are these activities linking each other? How are they depending on themselves? The activities that will have to start at the same time. There are those activities that have to wait for other activities to happen so that the current activity can take place. So predecessors mainly look at dependencies like finish to start, start to finish, start to start, and finish to finish. Yeah, but predecessor mainly means something that comes before a new thing. Or rather, I would say a predecessor is an opposite of a successor. Then we shall learn how to assign resources in Msproject, and mainly we use the resource sheet view to enter these resources. Resources can be in form of manpower, which is work, or can be in form of materials or fixed assets, and then so on. Then finally, once you've entered the task duration, predecessors, you've assigned resources, Msproject has that capability of producing the total budget of that project. So this is how Msproject looks like. This is the interface of a Gantt chart, and by default this is the page that comes first. So it is very important. I would advise students to always start with this in mind. Once you're opening up Msproject, first save the project into the folder you're comfortable with, whether a folder created on the desktop or under local disk D. Now, as per your exams, most of the time we ask you to create folders on the desktop, and that's where these projects will be saved. But in an organization, you may decide to save your work, your project work, under documents. So it depends. Then point 2, start by setting the project start date. Ask yourself, where are we scheduling from? Is it from the start date or the finish date? So how do we do this? You go to the project tab. Project tab takes you to project information. Now once you click on project information, a dialog box appears and you're prompted to select whether you're going to schedule from the start date or the finish date. Then if you're to make other changes to your project, changes like changing the working time, if you're to calculate if you're to determine how the work is going to be entered. Is it going to be entered in days, weeks, so on? You go to the tools tab, options, and then a dialog box having different kinds of tabs will appear, and you select the tab that you're interested in. Now example 1 is you've been given a start date and you're supposed to schedule using the start date, so that at the end you're required to determine the end date. This is the question. Then example 2 is we are going to schedule our project starting with the finish date. Now today's class, our interest is in this, using the finish date, so that we can be able to determine the start date. And these are the questions that we are going to use to guide us on creating this project schedule. So on that note, allow me open up Msproject. So you go to the start button and then type in project. For this class we are using Microsoft Project 2007. Yeah, but there are newer versions. So I told you the newer versions. Be sharing this question with your course leaders. I'll be sharing it with your course leaders. So a new students registration system is to be installed in MOOCs. The following activities have been fully done: activity definition, activity sequencing, and activity duration estimation as represented in the WBS below. Use the sample data below to come up with a project schedule. Now this is how our WBS looks like. We have the task number, have the tasks itself, the duration, predecessor, and then the resources. Then looking at the questions, note project resources. These are the project resources. Then you're required to use the standard calendar to make all Saturdays and Sundays working days. Change the duration to weeks as per duration default. Enter the tasks in the Gantt chart showing clearly their duration. If the end date of the project is this, determine the project start date. Using a resource sheet, allocate resources as shown in the WBS. Cost all resources at that. Then all tasks should be 100% complete. Determine the total duration of the project and then save your work in the created folder as your name and reg number. Okay. So let us go to Msproject. Let's go to Msproject. I'll share a question with your course leaders. Share a question with your course leader. Let me first get it. Okay. Okay, so we shall begin by saving. I usually advise students to begin by saving the project. Begin by saving the project. So how do we save? We go to File tab, then New. We go to Save As. We shall call it Msproject. Call it Msproject. I'll save it on the desktop, and then I have no folder in the desktop, so I'll create a new folder and call it Aisha. Assuming my reg number is 20. Remember, you can't use a slash here, so instead of a slash I can use a comma or a full stop. So slash u, instead of a slash I'll use a full stop. 3155, assuming that's my reg number, slash ps. Then I'll open it and then save my project. Now when you look at the taskbar, the title bar, it has changed the title to Msproject. Now after saving your project, it's better you go directly to scheduling the project start date. Is the project going to be scheduled from the finish date or from the start date? So how do we schedule our project? We go to Project tab, select Project Information. Now here you're being asked where schedule from. There is a drop down here. Is it from the start date or finish date? In our question, part D of the question, we're given the end date, so that means it's our project finish date. Once you click on that, this is activated. Initially it was start date that was activated, but now it's the finish date activated. Please always click on this drop down so that the calendar appears, because sometimes there are computers that start with the month then date, others start with the date then month. So it's better you click on the calendar and select what you want. Now we're given an end date of 27th June. So 27th June 2022. That is what you've been given as your finish date, and at the end of it all, they require you to determine the start date. After setting the finish date, you click on the OK button. Actually, the calendar changes. This is our Gantt chart. It has a section where we have to type in the task, and then whatever we type in here is represented in form of bars beside. So the dates have changed. Now after setting the project date, our next element is to set the project preference settings. Now how do we go to the preference settings? You go to Tools tab, Options. Now you have to check all these tabs and check what you are supposed to change. When I look at this in line with my question, you've been given resources that are being charged at a cost, a UGX cost. So you come to symbol and change it to UGX. Then you can remove the decimal places, give it 0 decimal digits. Now we want to change currency, reason being the people who designed this software didn't put UGX in here. So the symbol alone is what is going to help us. Type in your symbol, the current symbol, which is UGX, then we don't want decimal digits. So that was under View tab. Check Schedule tab. Now under Schedule tab, we have Show Assignment Units as there are two options, percentage or decimal. Now this shows you the level of completion, how far the project has gone. Has it gone 20%, 50%, or 100%, or is it in decimals? So in this case it depends on the question, but when I look at part D of our question, it's in form of a percentage, so we take on percentage. So new tasks finish on the finish date. This is right because we already set it the other side. Now they're asking you duration is entered in. You look at your question, we've been given duration in form of weeks. Then work is entered in hours. We are saying work is entered in hours because when you look at part F of the question, you've been given a pay rate per hour, a pay rate of per hour. That means it's paid per hour. So that's why I've selected back centered in hours. Okay, then view tab. View tab, you already changed. Save tab, nothing to change. Calculation, nothing to change, but maybe talk about this. We have default fixed cost accrual. Now this shows you on how you're going to pay your workers. Are you paying them at the start before work is done, or are you going to pay for whatever they've done, or you're paying them at the end or completion of the work? In most cases we prefer prorated, whereby if a worker has worked for 5 days out of 7 days, then it's better to pay the 5 days other than paying at the start or at the end. Then interface tab, nothing to change. Then general, nothing to change. Security tab, nothing. Edit, nothing. Spelling, nothing. Then collaborate, nothing to change. Calendar, this is very crucial, very important, yeah, because you have to interpret these values here according to the questions that they have given you. So here they are telling you a week starts on a Sunday, which is okay since they didn't specify in the question. Fiscal year starts in January, which is okay. Then default start time is 8 a.m, end time is 5 p.m. Then you have hours. Now these are default values, but the question you're given is the one that determines these. So hours per day is 8 hours, hours per week 40, then days per month 20. Those are default values, but what does your question require? So part A of the question is, using the standard calendar, make all Saturdays and Sundays working days. Now by default, according to a standard calendar, Saturdays and Sundays are non-working days. Okay, so what does that mean? It means if they are non-working days, then people are able to work for only 5 days a week. But this question says Saturdays and Sundays have to be made working days. So what does that mean? It means these workers are going to work 7 days a week. So on hours per day, we shall not change anything because the question hasn't specified. So we shall remain with the 8 hours. But hours per week, this is going to change. Why? Because a standard calendar says people are going to work 5 days. So that means you get the 5 days times the 8 hours to get the 40 hours. But if people are to work for 7 days, since Saturday and Sunday have been made working days, then this is going to change. We shall get the 7 days in a week times the 8 hours, and that is 56 hours to be worked in a week. So you can even just see it in this way. Hours per week, when you click here, the first day will take 8 hours, day 2 16, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. Okay, sorry about that. So this is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7. So 7 days a week will be 56 hours. Then you also need to interpret here days per month. Remember, they are working 7 days a week. Now by default in Msproject, someone would say there are 31 days, others 30 days. Now what Msproject does, it considers 4 weeks, the ones that are going to be worked. So So you say 7 days times the 4 weeks. The amount the value you get is what you put here. So 7 times 4, you get 28 days. Now this is very important because it's going to help you determine the costs. Once you put in the wrong days per month, then you get a wrong total cost. After all that is done, you click on the OK button. After working on the preference settings, you can now feel free to enter the tasks since we have worked on the major settings. But before you enter tasks, we need to change Saturdays and Sundays to working days. Now, how do you know a working day and a non-working day? Basing on this graph, working days are represented in white, and then non-working days are represented in gray. So right now, Saturdays and Sundays are still non-working days, but this has to change. How do we change them? You go to Tools tab, then select Change Working Times. Now when you click on Change Working Times, remember you were asked to use a standard calendar. There are so many calendars, but you've been asked to use a standard calendar. This is how a standard calendar looks like, and this is the key to whatever is in here. Now we have two tabs here. Exceptions tab, this helps you to determine the public holidays in that project. Then work weeks, these are the days that these employees are going to work. So when you click on work weeks, it's giving you working times are from 8 a.m. to midday. Then they go in for lunch break. Then they start from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Now how do we make changes of the working days, the non-working days to working days? You click on the details button. Once you click on the details button, you have that 7 days in a week, Sunday up to Saturday. Now you have to click on the day that you want to change. Then look at these 3 radio buttons. The first option is use project default times for these days. That is to leave them the way they are, to leave them the way they are. Or you can decide to set that day to a non-working time, or set that day to the specific working times. So since Sunday has been a non-working day, we have to set that day to specific working times. Now we are going to fill in the working times here, but we are going to get them from up here. Now the laptop I'm using, this is a 12-hour clock, but some of us you could be seated on a computer or a laptop that has a 24-hour clock. So it's the same thing, but you just need to know what does each of them mean. Because if it was a 24-hour clock, then I would be having 08 then 00 to midday, then I would have 13 to 17. Okay, so you need to know what each of them means. Now I'll type in my time. This is 8 a.m. and the first morning shift ends at 12 p.m. 12 p.m. Then after they start at 1 p.m. to 5 then you say okay. Initially this was gray, but it has changed to white because you've changed that day. Then still work weeks, come to details, click on Saturday, set date to specific working times. Still we are going to use based on the default times, which is 8 a.m. to midday. Midday. Then from 1 to 5. Then okay, so all these are in white because they have been made working days. Then click on OK. Our graph has changed. We no longer have gray because Saturdays and Sundays have been made working days. Then part C of the question, enter the tasks in the Gantt chart showing clearly their duration. Remember the question is example 2, and this has been sent to your course leaders. This is the question. This is the question we are using. I've shared a copy with your course leaders. Okay. Now we shall begin from the task, and our first activity, our first task is project scope. And project scope doesn't have a duration. Anything without a duration shall give it a duration of 0. You don't have to change anything under start or finish because the system does everything for you. Then predecessors, we shall fill it later on after entering all the tasks. Okay, so this project scope in the WBS has been made bold. So how do we make it bold here? Just put a cursor inside it, then move the cursor to the ribbon and look for B, which is for bolding. Or you can just put your cursor here and then press Ctrl B. So we go to the next task, which is determine project scope. Determine project scope, and it has a duration of 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Next activity is secure project sponsorship. And this is to take a duration of 2 weeks. Now if you're to look at the bars, they are moving backwards. Okay, they are all starting from the finish date 27th and moving backwards. Reason being, we selected schedule from finish date. They are all starting from the end date. At the end of it all, we shall be able to determine the start date of that project. Then we have define preliminary. Define preliminary resources. And the duration is 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Then secure core resources. Secure core resources. Duration 3 weeks. Scope complete. Has a duration of 0. Now when you look at the task numbers of the, let me take you back to the question. When you look at the task numbers, the first task is project scope, then the next is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 up to 1.5. Now what this shows is that these 5 sub-activities are under project scope. Then these other 6 are also under system analysis. That's why system analysis is 2, and then the rest are 2.1 up to 2.6. That means all these are subtasks for the major task system activities. The same. So later on I'll show on how we can enter the task numbers. So project scope is a 0 duration. Then we go to activity number 2, which is system analysis. System analysis. And system analysis has no duration, so we give it duration 0. Then it was bold, put a cursor there, Control B. Then 2.1 is review current infrastructure. Review current infrastructure. And it has a duration of 5 weeks. Next is review hardware environment. Review hardware environment. And it has a duration of 2 weeks. Next is review software environment. Just change this to software. Change this to software. And it has a duration of 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Next is review communication environment. Review communication environment. Communication environment, which has a duration of 2 weeks. Duration of 2 weeks. Next is review, learn. Review, learn, stroke. Review, learn, stroke 1, and it has a duration of 4 weeks. Remember this, I'm getting this from the question, the WBS that was provided from the question. Then lastly we have review complete. Review complete. This is what we call entering tasks. It has a duration of 0. We go to the third task, third major task, which is system design. System design. System design. It doesn't have a duration, so I give it a duration of 0. Then we have preliminary hardware. Preliminary hardware design. Having a duration of 4 weeks. So maybe if I'm taking you still to the graph area, everything is starting at the finish date, running towards the start date. Everything is moving backwards because we selected schedule from the finish date. So preliminary hardware design, hardware design has a duration of 4 weeks. Our next task is preliminary software design. Preliminary software design, which has a duration of 1 week. Next is preliminary communication design. Communication design with a duration of 2 weeks. The duration of 2 weeks. Then learn stroke 1 design with a duration of 4 weeks. 4 weeks. Then finally under this, remember this is under system design. I didn't make it bold. Okay. So finally under that activity we have design, document complete with a duration of 0. Then we go to the last activity, which is budget. The last major activity, which is budget. We shall make it bold. This doesn't have a duration, so I give it a duration of 0. Then we have develop budget. Develop budget as our first subtask under budget, and this has a duration of 2 weeks. We have align budget requests, to business schools. Business goals. This is having a duration of 1 week. The third subtask is present long stroke short term budget request. And the duration is 2 weeks. So you can enlarge this a bit, just like in Excel, how we enlarge cells. Okay. Then we have secure. Multi-phase secure multi-phase stroke year funding, whose duration is 2 weeks. Then we have budget complete. With a duration of 0. And finally, prototype complete. Prototype complete. With a duration of 0 weeks. So we have finished entering our tasks in the Gantt chart. This is what we are under Gantt chart view, and this view comes by default, so no need to look for it. So part D of the question, we've done it already. Part B was already done. Now before we go to part A, whereby you've been asked to use a resource sheet to allocate resources as shown in the WBS, you notice that we have not entered the predecessors. We've not entered the predecessors, and we said predecessors show us how these activities depend on themselves. Now they can depend on themselves based on link types, or we can use these task numbers, the task numbers in the question to help us. Now when you look at our question, we have task numbers in form of 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, so on. But when you look at the edge here, we only have counting numbers 1 up to 26. But these tasks, this WBS has major tasks. It has 4 major tasks and then smaller subtasks. Now we are going to insert in a column. Which column is going to give us the task number. Now you put your cursor here, then you go to insert tab, click on it, insert column. Now this dialog box appears. You're required to type in a field name, which field name is going to give us the WBS codes. Just type in letter W As you type in letter W, actually WBS is what comes first. Just click on WBS, then under title type in task number. Okay, task number, and then go to OK. There you go, you have your task numbers here. But still, these task numbers have given you counting numbers. How do we make them look like the task numbers in the WBS? We do that by indenting. Indenting is the same as paragraphing. Now, if you have heard of multi-level numbering lists, like those used when creating a table of contents, whereby you have 1.1, 1.1.1. Now we can do that by indenting. We shall indent all the major tasks. We shall indent all the subtasks so that we differentiate them from the major tasks. Now, how do we indent? You begin by selecting all the subtasks under project scope. Then come to the ribbon. There are these two arrows. One is for outdent, and then the forward arrow is for indent. Indenting is the same as paragraphing. Click on it. When you click on it, these subtasks are pushed inside, and then whatever was number 2 is now 1.1, 1.2 up to 1.5, and these match with the codes in your WBS. Actually, when you indent, you notice that a black line has come up. It's giving a border. Yes, it's giving us a border. Then we go to the second major task, which is system analysis. Get all its subtasks, indent them. So this subtask also becomes a border, this black line. Come to the third, indent its subtasks. Indent its subtasks. Yeah, we also have a border for system design. Indent also sub-activities of budget, and it will also give you a border for budget. Now, these are the codes that you have in your WBS, the WBS given in the question. Now, these codes are going to help us enter predecessors. In your question, your predecessors are in form of codes 1.1, 1.2, 1.2, 1.4. Unfortunately, we can't have those codes in the line of predecessor because the software doesn't pick on the codes, but rather it picks on the numbers on the left side. Now we shall do the task of matching the task number with the numbers at the extreme left. Now you come to and look at your question. Activity 1.2 doesn't have a predecessor. You ignore. Even the first activity doesn't have a predecessor. Ignore. But when you go to 1.2, which is secure project sponsorship, it has a predecessor of 1.1. Okay, so that means that for activity 1.2 to start, activity 1.1 must be complete. But what number does 1.1 correspond with? It corresponds with a 2. So we're going to type in a 2 here. Now I want you to look at the graph. The moment I enter 2 here, you're going to see an arrow appearing, and the activity is going to, these two activities are going to link each other. Okay, so you can see these activities have linked up each other. Then you go to the second one, which is define preliminary resources. Define preliminary resources, and its predecessor is 1.2. Come look at 1.2. Which number does it match with? It matches with a 3. So type in a 3 there. These activities are matching themselves. They are matching themselves. Okay. They're matching themselves. Okay. So we go to the next one, which is the predecessor is still 1.2. 1.2 matches with a 3, so that means this will also be a 3. So what does that mean? These two activities must start at the same time because they are sharing the same predecessor. The next activity is 1.4. 1.4 matches with a 5. So type in your 5. Okay. And the effect is shown this side. Yeah, the effect is here. The next review hardware, is it? Review current hardware, review current infrastructure. The predecessor is 1.5, so 1.5 matches with 6. Type in your 6 there. Okay. Next is review hardware environment, and the predecessor is 2.1. 2.1 goes with an 8. Type in your 8. Next, review software environment 2.1, which 2.1 is an 8. Next is 2.2. 2.2 is 9. Next predecessor 2.3, which is 10. Next is 2.5. Find out 2.5 is 12. 12. Next is system design, has no predecessor. Then preliminary hardware design, its predecessor is 2.6. So 2.6 is 13. Next predecessor is 3.1. 3.1 is 15. It's 15. Next is 3.2, which is 16. Remember, we are matching these codes with the numbers at the extreme, and we said we can't type in this exactly here. You just pick what the system can relate with. Then learn stroke 1, their predecessor is 3.3, which is 17. It is 17. Then design document complete has a predecessor of 3.4. 3.4 is 18. 18. Then we have a developed budget with a predecessor of 3.5, which is 19. Align budget, predecessor of 4.1, which is 21. Present long stroke short term, its predecessor is 4.2, which is 22. Then secure multi-phase circular funding. The predecessor is 4.3, which is 23. Next, predecessor is 4.4, which is 24. And next as well, predecessor is 4.4, which is 24. Now the linking, we have joined up these tasks, we have linked them together basing on the predecessors. So someone could be asking, why are we linking them up? Because we had a column for predecessors, and predecessors help us to join up the activities. Now we are going to answer question E, which is using a resource sheet, allocate resources as shown in the WBS. Now this question was so direct, another person will not tell you where to enter the resources from, but you should know that resources are entered from the resource sheet view. Okay, so how do we change to a different view? You go to view tab and then select, and then you select the view that you're interested in. In this case, you're interested in a resource sheet. The name of the view appears at the extreme left. So you've been told, you've been given 3 resources. When you look at note, our question is here. So under note you have SA for system analyst, PM for project manager, and PP for programmer. That is what we are going to enter in our resource sheet. So we have system analyst, and since these are employees, we select the work type. The initial, you were given an initial of SA. An initial SA. So for costs or the amount of money, we type it under standard rate. Don't be tempted to type it under overrate, because you won't be able to get the total budget, or you'll get different values in the total budget. Now here you were told 100. System analyst is paid 100 shillings per hour. Shall go to the next resource, which is a project manager. And the initial of this person is PM, and the standard rate is 200 shillings per hour. Our third resource is programmer. And the initial is PP, who is paid 300 shillings per hour. Now after entering our resources, we shall go to the next. Let us go back to the Gantt chart. So cost all the resources at this amount of money and determine the total cost for the project. Now we can't determine the total cost unless you have entered in the resource names. But in your question, you've been given resources, you've not been given resource names. So what we are going to do, we are going to insert in a column, which column is going to be called resource initial. So just type in letter R, then come and search for resource initials. So select resource initials, and then this in your WBS was called resources. So type in resources, and then OK. So the column is here. You're going to start entering in these resources. Click on the drop down. The first one doesn't have a resource, so we shall ignore. The second one has a resource of SA. Next is SA. So as I select, the resources also come in automatically by default. SA. The third is SA. Actually, when you look at the graph, you find the names as well written on each of the resources. System analyst and then so on. So after that, the next one is there are two. We have SA and PM. So you have to select the first one. If you want to select our next resource, type in a comma, then come back and select the second one, which is PM. Then next is PM. Then review current infrastructure is SA and PP. SA, comma, still click on the drop down, and then we are on review current infrastructure, which is SA and then PP. So SA, type in a comma, then PP. Then click on the drop down again and select PP. Go to the next one, hardware environment, which is SA. Click on the drop down, select SA. Then software environment is also SA. Communication is SA and PP. SA, comma, PP. Next is PM. Next is SA. Remember, all these I'm getting them from the question that was from example 2, and this question was sent to your course leaders. Next is PP. Actually, these four are PP. PP. This is also PP, and next as well is PP. Then this doesn't have a resource. Then we go to develop budget. They have PP and SA. Select PP, comma, then select SA. Next is SA and PP. So select SA, comma, then select PP. Next is PM and SA. PM, comma, then SA. And next is SA. Now you have to take note, when you type in the wrong resources, it means you're going to have the wrong cost budget. Okay, so you've entered our resources. Next, you're supposed to determine the total cost for the project. How do we determine total cost? You may be wondering, you have to calculate. No need, the software does all that for you. it's just a matter of knowing where to click to get the cost budget. So you put a cursor here because we want to insert the column here. Go to insert tab and then go to column. In this case we're interested in the cost. Just type in letter C, then come and look for cost. Cost is here. Then give us the title of that column. So you're told that is total cost. It is the cost column. Okay, then okay. So the moment I insert, a column appears. You can see hashtags. Hashtags mean that the columns weren't enough. The column was small. Now this is wrong to say that this is the total cost, because this is just the cost for project scope. After it's just the total of project scope, but it's not for the entire project. So now what you are going to do, if you want to get for the entire project, then you have to indent all these. You're going to insert in a new task. How do you insert in a new task? Just put a cursor on the first row, you right click, then new task. Now this new task is going to represent the entire project. Okay, it's going to represent the entire project. That means all the total cost, total duration are all going to be here. But if this is the entire project, that means all major projects have to be indented inwards so that you're able to show the level. Okay, so I'm going to indent the major tasks. Put my cursor there, I indent it inwards. I'll go to the second task, indent it inwards. Third task, indent it inwards. Fourth task, indent it inwards. Actually, if you're to look at these codes, they have been put at their rightful levels. We have 1 being the major project, then we'll have 1.1 major task 1, 1.2 the second major task, up to the fourth major task, and then so on. Now if you've been asked the total cost, then it is 537,600 shillings. Now that is the total cost, but you can try to check your answer and see whether really the system has given you the rightful amount. Let us try to check out. Let me see if I can get a calculator here, and then we try to prove our answer. Okay, let us prove our answer. One of these. Now I'll take on an example of system analyst. We were told a system analyst is paid 100 shillings per hour. Okay, 100 shillings per hour. But this analyst works 8 hours a day. Okay, so that means we shall say 8 hours times the 100 shillings, meaning this person earns 800 shillings per day. But how many days are they working in a week? Since Saturdays and Sundays were made working days, that means they are working 7 days a week. So you get the money that this person earns in a day times the 7 days. That will be the money for a week. but this person has is working 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, those are 14 days. Okay, so you get 14 days times the amount of money this person gets in a day. So let me get my calculator. I try out my calculator. So if I earn 800 a day, then for 14 days I'll be earning 11,200 shillings. Is it what we have here? Yes. So that means we have the system, the preferred settings we put in are right, and the system has been able to give us the right answer because we entered the right values. You can try to prove even the others. You try to calculate out and then see if it gives you the right answers. Then part G of the question, all tasks should be 100% complete by the project end date. Now how do we make tasks complete? Since they have said all tasks, that means we shall just double click on the entire project. Then where there is percentage complete, make it 100%. Today they have told you to make all tasks complete. Next time they may pick out a particular task to be made complete. Okay, so we have made it complete 100%. Then you click on OK. Now how do you know that you've made that the tasks have been made complete? This initially we didn't have this, the icon of ticks. So these icons are the ones that show that the tasks have been made complete. Even the blue, the black line inside the blue bar shows that the task has been made complete. Initially they were just blue bars, but when you make it 100% complete, the black lines appear in your bars. Then determine the total duration for the project. Now total duration of the project, still we shall get it from the entire project, which is 33.5 weeks. Now we had a question whereby we were asked to determine the project start date. Now you come here, our project start date is 10th August 2021. It means for a project to end on this date, it must have started on this day. Okay, so all these can also be written on your question paper, but as we are marking as well, we shall be able to look at your work and then give you a mark there. Then lastly, save your work in the created folder as your name and rig number. We did this already. That's why I have the title bar as Msproject. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the session. Please, if in case of any questions, please call the numbers that was sent at the beginning of the session, or you can WhatsApp and we can always guide you. Thank you.